Hi everyone. So, as you can see, I'm wearing my very favorite Sufi hat. So, yeah, this week a colleague phoned up and wanted to talk to me about cholesterol and use of statins, and some family members that seem to have the genetic hypercholesterolemia, and what I thought about it. And it brought back to me all my writing that I've done on cholesterol and the controversy around it. The fact is that it's still controversial, despite the fact that statins have been used for, 20 years at least. It's still a controversial subject. Of course, most cardiologists still recommend statins, and they have lots of good evidence and science to it. But why is it that some cardiologists think it's still controversial? Well, there's good reasons for it. We in an area today where, science is often driven by bias, by pharmaceutical companies, by protocols that just seem to work, and everybody has to use it. Cardiologists have to use it. I mean, when my cardiologist discovered that I had a high cholesterol, he said, "Oops, you're going to have to go on statins." I said, "Well, what about diet?" He said, "Come on, diet doesn't make any difference to cholesterol." I said, "Oh, okay." I went home, and for 3 months, I went on to a low-fat diet and no oil. Even olive oil I stopped. It wasn't easy for my wife, who does all the cooking. Nevertheless, after 3 months, my cholesterol had fallen to such a low level that it freaked me out a bit. It certainly didn't feel healthy to have such a low cholesterol. So, why is that? Diet obviously works. So why cardiologists will tell you that the diet doesn't make any difference, it's obviously not true. So the question of cholesterol is so interesting for me, because cholesterol is obviously totally normal. The body uses cholesterol for a whole lot of things. Cholesterol is a mother chemical that goes into cell membranes, it goes into manufacture of hormones. So we need cholesterol. And when we start to play around with the level of cholesterol in the body, remember that the body has astonishing ways of maintaining homeostasis and functionality. The body is intelligent. Whatever it's doing because it has to do. And whatever cholesterol you have is the cholesterol that the body at that moment is feeling very comfortable with. Has statins made a difference to cardiovascular health? The fact is that heart disease is still the number one killer. Despite the 20 years of taking statins, cardiovascular disease hasn't come down much, if it's come down at all. So how come that's true? If statins are supposed to be bringing down cholesterol, then how come we're still having so much cardiovascular disease? I think that there's good reasons for it from my perspective. Remember that ill health is a metabolic problem. Cancer is not a genetic problem, it's a metabolic problem. What do I mean by metabolic problem? I mean that the body's whole metabolism all functions together as one piece. Body is constantly maintaining homeostasis. Whatever it's doing is the best it's doing that it can do. So the body's in control and knows what's happening. So what happens when you take something like a statin? Remember, what a statin does is blocks a particular pathway. And it blocks the pathway in a very fundamental way. All drugs do that. Where you take an antihistamine, a beta blocker, serotonin uptake inhibitor, they all work by blocking a functional metabolic process. Excuse me. So when you block a metabolic process, you must understand that what you're doing when you block a process in order to affect a particular outcome that you want, but you nevertheless are blocking a metabolic process. And if you block a metabolic process, well, you're making the body more dysfunctional. You can't block a function and think that it's going to is going to work it by correcting an endpoint over there, but the body is full of metabolic functions, and they're all interlinked and intertwined and work together. So the moment you block a metabolic function, the body has to compensate for that. And that compensation creates stress in other parts of the system. So you can't just block a function and get away with it without having side effects. So the side effects are not, strictly speaking, due to the drug itself. It's due to the fact that the drug is blocking the metabolic process. And I'm not saying there's no place for that. I think that there are many drugs that are incredibly useful and can be used, but very few drugs should be used long-term. And when we start to use drugs long-term, then we're starting to run into trouble where we don't really know what we're doing. Because when you block a function, and remember that most people over the age of 50 are not on one drug only. They're often on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 drugs, all of them interfering with the metabolic function. Well, that's, what to say about that? All of them are blocking metabolic functions. The body has to constantly readjust itself because the body functions as one whole piece. It's not like this particular metabolic function works on its own. There's another metabolic function and another one. So they all have their own particular way of working. So one has to be really careful in using powerful drugs long term. They have a place. And there are some drugs maybe even need to be used long term, but we need to be really, really careful around that. So how else can you improve metabolic functions? Well, again, there's much more science, for example, in exercise and the way exercise naturally improves metabolic functions in a whole range of different ways. Really important for cardiovascular health, exercise. You probably can get much better endpoint results from exercise alone. 20 minutes of exercise every morning, doing some walking, really good. And if you do that, then perhaps you don't need the drugs. So exercise, good diet, stopping the use of ultra-processed foods, all that can help to make an enormous difference. And then remember that something like statins, for example, that block a biochemical pathway, don't only block cholesterol. There are other things on that pathway which are important, like coenzyme Q10. Statins also block the manufacture of coenzyme Q10. Coenzyme Q10 is essential for mitochondrial function. And mitochondria would produce energy. And which organ produces the most energy in the body, or needs the most energy in the body, is the heart. So here we take in something to block cholesterol that's supposed to be protective to cardiovascular function. At the same time, it's also blocking coenzyme Q10, which mitochondria need. And the heart needs lots of coenzyme Q10. So what I'm pointing to here is we always have these choices. And maybe for some people, taking statins are the best choice. I mean, not everybody wants to go exercise for 20 minutes a day and to change their dietary habits and do all those healthy things. That would be so much better in a way. Maybe they're the ones that need to take statins, but not routinely on everybody. I think every practitioner should be looking at very carefully, each person individually. Is this person prepared to do lifestyle changes, or do they want statins? I think that is what makes a big difference. Have a good day.